see so much of the women that I see who want it all, can have it all, but it's at what cost? Like it's at the cost of guilting yourself, shaming yourself, running yourself to the ground. And it's not just about reframing your achievements in your work, but it also is like, of course, like God has given you those dreams. So it's this like really trying to understand. I think social media has just really played a mind blown on us because I think we try to present ourselves as, I'm a 7-figure millionaire business owner and all these different things that will get the views, will get the engagement, but at the end of the day, like those are the things that people are looking for us to like get to. It's again back to that definition of your own success. Like if your own success is having a business that sustains you so that you can work with your family and, spend time with your family, like that's all that matters.
I am so, so, so excited to start off this episode today because Paige crossed my path and I was like, absolutely, this is so my jam. So she is a life design and business coach, which for me is amazing. I love anything that can get you to your most authentic self. So whether that is helping ambitious women or entrepreneurs or those who just know that they're meant for more, she is so big on that. And she helps you really navigate those big changes and design the life that you're truly proud of. And I feel like that is just me in a bubble. And so when we crossed paths, I was like, yes, Paige, please speak to this because I love having that different perspective. And I know that she's really big on even when we get into these ruts or areas in our life, sometimes it takes this perspective of trying to just live more aligned with our values to reset our expectations, to get to the heart of really where our values lie. And so I could go on and on about her incredible background, but I just want to dive deeper into like the story that made her, who she is and how she found those special things that really what guided her to what she's doing right now. So welcome, Paige.
Thank you, Vanessa. That was such a nice intro. I appreciate it. Yeah, so I would say, so I'm an American. I went on my overseas, I graduated college, traveled, and I moved to New Zealand. And so I think that sparked this. I knew I wanted to like be adventurous and not just go straight to the corporate 9 to 5. I mean, I knew that I love the corporate world, but I kind of knew I just needed to get some travel in me. And so I think I grew up knowing that like choosing change is good for you and you have to push yourself outside the comfort zone. And from that, I was like, okay, I'm going to move to a different country. Didn't think much of it. I was living my single life. It was super fun. Ended up meeting someone and all my family and friends were like, don't fall in love with a Kiwi. And I was like, I promise I won't. And so I think from there, lo and behold, what happened is I fell in love. And so now I live here with my husband. Like, long story short, we ended up getting married during COVID. It was a hard, like, transitionary period, but that is what made me really love life design. I'm a learning designer by like trade. So I love the behind the scenes of designing something before you actually get to the practical steps or your scheduling or whatever. So I think from that I knew I wanted to like push myself outside my comfort zone, and also the way that we continue to grow is pushing ourselves past that point of comfort.
Yeah.
And I knew that like moving countries would be very difficult, but I also knew that it's another step in becoming a little bit more of who I am. And so I love talking about change. Like, we choose change sometimes. We also don't choose change. Sometimes life happens and, things hit the fan, and there's a lot of stuff that we have to still respond to, even if we didn't want it to happen. So I think being able to look at, okay, how did I learn from this? What kinds of values do I want to bring into this next season of my life? So I hope that gives a bit of a background, but I just absolutely love figuring out our identities during this transitionary period in this like messy middle period.
Yeah. I feel like it's so relevant for anyone at any point in time in our lives because we're always going through different seasons and some are so much more difficult to navigate than others. And I think in this space of like life purpose, right? Like we're always searching for what are we designed to do? And that can be really hard to figure out on our own. And most people just they get stuck and they feel frustrated and they feel like, am I really in this place that I'm called to be? And I think when you can find that clarity and step fully into that space, it helps so many other areas of your life and you just feel this huge sense of fulfillment. And I think that I'm like projecting and speaking from a place of like that's exactly how it was for me. As I felt like, I was in my 9 to 5 and I was working a corporate job and in some respects, I loved what I did, but I knew that that was like, I had this other part of me that was nudging me to say, no, you are meant for more. There's so much out there that I feel like you haven't fully stepped into. And it was just like this period of, okay, let me try this, let me do this, let me do that. And it wasn't until, God shifted my perspective and said, well, he kind of had to force me into what I'm doing now.
Gonna say what was that like moment where you were like, oh, I have to do this now? Like was there
Yeah, it was
a
like a force.
pivot moment or what was that for you?
Yeah, so like originally for myself, I started out like I was originally going to go to medical school and I was going to become a doctor and then I was like, well, unless I want to be going to school for like a million years, like I can't continue on this trajectory because I kept getting waitlisted for a lot of things and I was like I just can't keep putting life on hold. I have this amazing corporate job now. And so like I was like, well, I'm making more money doing that than what I would with my degree
Yeah.
top of
Yeah.
student loans. So like, let's just keep doing this. And all the while I started building a business. I was doing photography and then I had my oldest and I was like, I love this. This is amazing. So I did that for a few years in like the motherhood space. And I had my youngest and that like the daycare that he was going to go to didn't save him a spot. And I was like, Lord, what do I do?
Oh wow.
Because yeah, and this was coming out of
There's so
COVID.
many other factors happening,
Yep.
in the background. Yep.
Yep. And so, this is somewhat in COVID, post-COVID type space and daycares were like a year out. And I was like, what am I going to do? I can't just switch you into a different daycare. And so I prayed and God was like, stay at home. And the funny part is like that was the
Wow.
number one thing I told my husband. I was like, we can have another baby because we were kind of iffy. I was like, we can have another baby, but like the one thing I won't do is stay at home. And so when God
Yeah.
filled me with that, I was like, this must be you because I know that's not me that wants to do this.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to have to pivot. I ran my studio out of my home. I had this beautiful space set up. And I was like, I can't really do that while staying home with my boys. What else can I do? Because I had this other part of me that knew you are meant, like, there's so much beauty in staying at home. And I give all the praise to moms who stay at home. I just knew that wasn't who I was designed to be. And I knew I
Yeah.
had this other part of myself that I was like, you need something to also, supplement your days.
Yeah.
And so I pivoted into this space. And that took a little bit of clarity, even finding within what I'm doing now to say, yep, this is what I
Right.
do. I love this.
Yeah, and I listened to one of your recent episodes about kind of finding clarity,
Mhm.
and you're praying for clarity, and you're like, God, give me an answer. And then, sometimes it's just taking that next little step, and then that is the clarity.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you're walking into the peace of God, but you're also taking the faiths, like the faith in that He will lead you. So
Yeah.
it's kind of that very interesting
Yeah.
double-sided coin.
So like I'm curious, like even as you've navigated what, you were saying that obviously you're an American and now you're
Yeah.
living in New Zealand, but it's like how did you have this moment where you're like, yes, this is just it for me. This is like where all of this has led me to this point, or like what gave you that clarity? Because that's such a big shift to go into that,
It
to immerse
is.
yourself into that.
Yeah, I think it was a lot of. So originally, I was actually going to stay here. Everything looked good on paper. I had a job lined up, and most people, you can't get a job like a sponsorship. So it all looked perfect on paper, but then I prayed about it, and it was this huge moment of God was super clear with me, like, you need to probably go home. And, we didn't know COVID was going to happen. That was kind of right before that. So I think it was just all the things lining up anyways. But I would say the biggest thing that kind of knew that I was prepared for this was because I had stepped out of the boat anyways. That first trip for living by myself, like traveling by myself, I knew that I could do it. And I knew that I had already made a great community here. So it was a bit of like, I know that there's some cushion over here on this side of the world. I have family everywhere. It's like a big blessing. So that is super nice. But I kind of knew that God would take care of me. But I think that was also my biggest fear was like, oh, will I actually be taken care of? And so I went through this whole processing of, will God actually take care of me? And do I have the faith to like trust him in that? And so I think I'm still going through that. And with a big series of events that happened last year, I feel like it has all been setting the stage because I do know that I've always thought in the back of my head, I'm ready to, public speaking and starting my own things. And I just have that entrepreneurial spirit, but I just don't think it was the time to do that yet. And I think I've matured a lot. I think I've really grown in my like work ethic and really understanding like not to be stressed about every single thing. And I think from the series of events that have happened in New Zealand, like I've been taken care of. We had a village taking care of me when I had a long-term injury last year, and a lot of unexpected things happened last year. And so I just was like, oh, I think we prayed, and there's a lot of really clear closed doors, which does suck sometimes, but it paved the way for some different open doors. And I think it's like the hardest thing to like grapple with, but sometimes the closed doors are actually like the endings are actually the most powerful thing
Yeah.
because otherwise you wouldn't choose it.
Exactly. Oh, I resonate with so much of what you said because I feel like I struggle with this. Even though I feel like I have clarity in what I do, there's moments where it feels like it's not that I'm not hearing God correctly or I don't believe in his capacity to do whatever he wants to do, right? But I'm like, is that what he wants to do? That's the thing. I'm
Yeah.
like, am I hearing this because it's me and what like I'm feeling is, I don't know, my own desires, or is this like a promise that God has made to me and I'm just needing to be patient and feel that like, this time of preparation or waiting or surrendering. And I feel like there are a lot of times where, yes, it's very, very clear. And I'm like, okay, God, I will do that. And there are
Yeah.
other times where it's just so I go back and forth with it. And I need that constant reassurance from other people where it's like, okay, let me ask this person. And it's not, I don't think it's like the trust. It's not that I don't trust in him. It's that I kind of don't trust in myself. And that I'm like, did you hear this
Yeah.
correctly? Or was this like, the thing? And so I love that when I don't know, sometimes I think it takes that boldness to say, like, I'm just going to do it. It's very, very scary. It makes me feel very uncomfortable. I feel like
Yes.
that's one of the things that you coach a lot of your clients on is in that space of just being uncomfortable because you're making these big shifts.
Yeah, and I think about the like 2 to 3 week mark, a lot of people are like, nope, I don't want to do this. I think there's that you try to encourage them to start
Yeah.
and encourage people to start. It's actually exciting at the start. And then there's again, it's just this arc of the ending of your old like self. And then you have to, like, the beginning is actually super fun for everyone. Like, for most people, the beginning of something is exciting, adventurous, you're open to things, and then you get into that messy middle again. But what I find is I think people just need to feel permission to be able to do these things because we just throughout like your childhood, and I don't know how you were raised, but I think a lot of it is do the practical thing, do the secure thing,
Mhm.
especially what's happened. There's so much insecurity and scarcity mindset about jobs and like financial stability in the future. And 100%, it's all valid, but I think it's listening to the voice of God and saying, actually, he's my provider. Like honestly trusting that is sometimes a lot harder when the noise is so much. And I think people just need permission to like step out into what they know they should do. Yeah, you actually can do this, and it's not going to uproot your entire life right this second. Like you might change gradually over time, and that's going to be beautiful, but you're supposed to do this. So, like, let me give you that courage to just start.
Yeah. I think so much of what we're doing, obviously in life in general, but like it's that level of it's mentality. Like how you approach everything
Totally.
is so much of like the affirmations, how you speak life over yourself. But I think that like there's no roadmap when it comes to business or
Nope.
your 9 to 5, whatever, that looks like. There's no roadmap. So somebody coming in with a different perspective and saying, it's okay for you to feel these things. It's okay for you to be uncertain. There's also a level of people don't talk about these things often, like these feelings of anxiety or, questioning, because I think we feel like we all have to have it figured out. And most of us don't,
Yeah.
especially in business. Like, no matter what level of success that you're in, I feel like we have some component where we're winging it. And
Yeah.
I think that somebody coming in with a different perspective and saying, that's okay. You don't need to have it all figured out. Let's just take that next step that feels most aligned with you. Like, can just be very refreshing and just give people that motivation to say, okay, that's fine. I'll take that next step, even if it's messy or scary, or it could just be beautiful. How do you help people navigate? Because I'm really big on taking like all of these things when you're trying to find clarity. You take your past experiences, your unique perspective on things and how God designed you specifically to be. And that really can help give you clarity into where you're meant to be. Like what do you incorporate when you're trying to help somebody figure this stuff out?
I really like to start with someone's values.
Yeah.
And I think there's a percentage, like 7% or something, very low, about we don't actually know our values. Like most people don't day to day think about their values. So I start with like values first, even though it feels like, oh, I've probably done this a million times, or, like it seems so elementary, but
Right.
at the same time, it's the best thing to get us to kickstart like what is actually taking up our time. And then I do a time audit with most people, and they start to figure out really quick, like, oh, I am wasting a lot of time. And most people self-correct. So I think once you just have someone being accountable to your time to someone else, it's immediately like, I wasted these 3 hours and I
Mhm.
don't even know what I did. So I think when thinking about how to help kickstart, I think that was your question, or just like how to get someone back in that mindset. I really start with what are your values? What kinds of things are you moving towards your values? And what kinds of things are moving away from your values? And that really does, because it's not like it's a spectrum. You can't always have a perfect week and things go out of plan and you have to pick up the kids and then, there's so many moving factors. And so I understand that. And, we all want, for the most part, variety in our days and to be fulfilled in different ways. And we're complex people. So I think it's being able to look at, am I doing more of my values per day? What actions are tied to those? And that starts to like cement, oh yeah, I actually do feel a lot more aligned, or I just am aware of it. And so you're able to think about, if I really value service, am I volunteering at all right now? Do I want to be? Like just asking yourselves those simple questions. Or am I making a meal for a friend? Like
Right.
those things, even though we forget, they're actually fairly simple. And then you can just keep incorporating them into your schedule. And that kind of just continues to pile on. And you start to see, I actually like really do like my schedule, or I feel unfulfilled in this way. Okay, let's just get back to those values and like figure that out.
I feel like that's so, to me, it's something that takes a long time to figure out because I feel like we're totally not aware of what we're doing within our day to day. And like you said, how much time is being allocated to these tasks that probably really aren't moving the needle. And I think often,
Yep.
whether you're in corporate or you're a business owner, all of those little things that are driving you away from, they're allocating your time into something else most often are not like the things that you started that career for or your business for. Like most often when you ask somebody, you're like, "What's your why?" And you're like, "I want more freedom with my family and more time with my family and more
Yeah.
freedom around my schedule and I want to travel and I want to do those things." But it's like everything you're doing doesn't align with that. So how
Yeah.
can we shift you back to the focus? And I think a lot of what I do because I work with business owners and it's like you have so much freedom over your schedule, but it doesn't feel like that. Like we always feel like we're at the mercy of like, okay, well, we have to sign this client. So I need to make sure that my schedule's open or let me like negotiate this area of my life. I feel that most people don't set those boundaries where they are like, no, I'm going to have a hard stop here and I'm going to, I'm going to make sure that I don't work on this day or whatnot. Do you find
Yeah.
that is the mentality different in New Zealand than it is here in America? Like,
I would say that there's this thing called tall poppy syndrome. So it's, America is the same side of the other coin. Like, how I try to explain it is like it's basically like pulling someone down to be like the rest of us.
mm,
So like, oh, don't be too much. Don't be like you're too cool. Like stop. Um, Similarly, like New Zealand is like, let me pull you down off the ladder so you can stay with everyone else. But then the US, I like to explain it as like everyone's trying to climb up the ladder and people like to pull others down to get to the top of the ladder. So it's very, I wouldn't say like both of those, there's a lot of good things. I would say New Zealand has a really, really good work-life balance mentality, sometimes almost too much, but I also love that I've deeply learned, okay, work is not everything for me. And I think before I moved here, I was like, I'm gonna work. I'm like a go-getter. I love all this. But I think that has really shifted for me in the last few years, is really understanding my role of like, yes, I'm gonna work super hard. I want to like continue my business, but I also know that everything else is just as important. And I think the US breeds a lot of hustle culture, even if people are trying to shift away from that. How do you incorporate the freedom principles, I guess, into your business or like your schedule?
I feel like I am somebody that I try to, well, my kids keep me in this place where I have to, right? Like when they're
Yeah,
here,
yeah,
I can't. It just gets to be too stressful. And so they ground me in that sense of like, I have to come to a hard stop on certain things because otherwise I'm that type of person that like, I really love what I do. So it doesn't feel like work. So I'm
yeah,
like, what else is there to do other than that? And I feel like I ground myself in that way with my boys, but I think I really start to I'm aware that in certain seasons of my business it's going to require more output from me. And I feel like there's no such thing as balance per se because when you have a family and you have young kids or older kids or whatever the case may be, like when you have that as one factor and you're trying to build on your business and whatnot, it's just they're never going to be like even. They're never going to have more of my attention, like
right.
same amount of my attention. And so I get really conscious of when I'm dedicating a lot of time in my business. And I feel like it comes in the form of guilt. So it's not
Right,
necessarily
right.
always like my own self-awareness, but then there's this other level where I'm like, okay, well, my business is real. My family is getting more of me. So, my clients are, it's like this scale that I'm always
It's the
trying to like,
teeter-totter.
yes,
Yeah,
like I'm not letting this one get too high and this one get too high on that end. And so I feel like that's kind of how, aside from being forced to kind of stop, it's like trying to
yeah,
mentally always be aware of like, you have to set these boundaries. Your clients cannot always you cannot always be accessible to your clients at all times. And
yeah,
just knowing that like your family is just as important as your business.
yeah.
So huge.
Someone from like who is a like I can see that you're a go-getter, you like really love what you do, so it's not like you're feeling like you have to be doing these things. It's like you want to be doing these things,
Right.
but you equally want to be focusing on family. So I haven't heard one person figure out the magic secret sauce yet, so I will let you know if I do.
Thank you. I don't think there is one that exists. The
No, there
one thing
isn't.
that I believe though, like, and that's exactly why I started Eden and Empire, the community is because I do believe that God didn't intend for it to be like this thing where you don't have your faith integrated into like your faith or your values integrated within your business. And then your family should come secondary. And it should be like this ecosystem where like you're not having to
Yeah,
sacrifice something in order to get this one thing. And I used to actually believe that. I used to believe that if you were successful, you could not have a successful family and vice versa. And I'm like, no, I feel like just in some respects, it kind of is that where if you're like going up, 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 up to the top, like a lot of times
Yeah.
people do neglect their family. And, if you want to be fully immersed with your family, you can't be as successful with your business. But I feel like there's this level of you just have to be mindful. And what is your definition of success? Because success like looks so different for everybody. And I
Every
think,
single person.
yeah,
Yeah. And I think that's the other thing that you start to like piece apart is we actually just don't know our definition of success. And, we're so bad at projecting into the future, or we look to the past to look at what we are capable of, but both are just total, like, our mind can't do that very well.
yeah,
So I think it's just about being able to create some of that, like, future vision. That's like what I love doing is helping people like identify and label their future vision, even if it changes, because it just gives someone like, oh, I really actually do want to do that in 5 years, or by this time, I want to be able to do this. And of course, every single time things get off track, but that's kind of the point is like being able to look into the future, but then hold it loosely
mhm,
and be able to just identify your own version of success because, some people want to go homesteading, some people want to be a CEO, like there's so many different like versions of a good life for everyone.
So I 100% agree. And I think that like that's the beauty of it. What part of it for you, like when you moved, is this like what you envisioned that you would be doing? Like what you're doing right now?
No and yes. Like I think I had always pictured, oh, I want to start a business or I want to kind of have this, start building this ecosystem and empire of like podcasting. Kind of knew I wanted to write a book, but I wasn't mature enough, I don't think, to really understand what that took. And it's been 3 years of me writing and I had to stop all of last year. And it's been this beautiful, like, I have to trust God's timing no matter what, because I think I knew I wanted to become that thought leader, but wasn't ready to step into it
Mhm.
because of all the different changes that have happened. It actually has been the timing that probably God already had set. And I was like, I'm ready now. And it's
Yeah.
like, actually, sometimes the patience is like, patience is the virtue, but I feel like that is not my first vocabulary word whatsoever. So, and I think the beauty of it, I think what you were saying about like just balancing is we all like the values sometimes go against each other, but it's that tension. And I've like written about a lot of this of like we always have this paradox of tensions and you are putting more weight to one, but then sometimes feels like you're lacking in the other, but it's really just like focusing and prioritizing. And I did not come up with this, but I love the phrase like you can do anything but you cannot do everything right now. So you have to really think about what you want to prioritize in that moment. And like with you balancing family and work, it's like you can do everything or anything you want, like podcast, creating your community, building your business in the back end, helping your clients, but you can't do it all at the same time as raising your kids. And so it's like just thinking about that long-term strategy and like, I actually will be able to do everything, but it might look a lot different than like right now.
Right. I feel like you and I are so similar in that I want everything like to be what
Yes.
I'm envisioning and I need it to be like maybe perfect right away or like I was literally thinking about that this morning. So it's funny you say that, but like I am trying to get out of this mentality of being in competition with myself more so than anything because I feel like I never realized how competitive I am and I'm not competitive with other people because I'm like such a huge cheerleader for other people. But for myself,
Yeah.
I'm like, you need to be the best right away. You need to like study all the things and know all
Right.
the things. And so, because I'm like that, as I'm building something, God has a different timeline than what my timeline is. And my level of patience just isn't there so often
Yeah.
for myself, like especially with Eden and Empire, right? Because you're building this community. And as you're building a community, if you want it to be of impact or have depth, that can't come with the width of it, right? Like it can't all come at once. It needs to be, and of course, so thankful that God knows that, right? Like he knows what is the most necessary. But like since you are so similar in that, like what are things that kind of like help when you're going through seasons of that? What helps you to kind of stay like in that mindset of God, this is your plan and not mine. Your plans are bigger than me kind of mentality.
I think it is really trying to distill down what God has put in me. Like, is this because God has given me that like download of, I think you're meant for this? And then what is my pride getting in the way? And I just know personally, my pride of like human feedback and wanting to look great and oh, Paige, she can do it all, like, and so I think a lot of my identity was rooted in that prior to my big concussion and recovery last year. And I think it took me, I'm a very active outdoorsy person as well, and I couldn't get out of the house for 8 months. Like it was pretty, and I think it was a mix of burnout plus, I think there's this phrase of if you don't choose sabbatical, sabbatical will choose you.
Wow.
And I think it was this really key pivotal point that sucked really, but it made me look at like everyone kept saying, "Oh, Paige, you're doing too much. You're doing so much." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, great." But you don't have the same dreams I do. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, so it's really thinking about what dreams has God given me and actually relying on his strength and not my own strength. And I think I was relying on my own strength to, get up early and write, go to work for 8 hours and then work out and then write some more. And there's seasons for that, right? Like of working hard. I felt like I was just in the flow. I think there was so many things that were going well, but I think I wasn't taking care of my body in the way that I needed to. And so it just was like, all right, you gotta rest for a long time. So I think because I had to go through the resting season of like you cannot do literally anything, where I just had to lie on the couch for all day, every day, and trust that God was going to help me get through the recovery. That now, and we had to really rely on God because there was a bit of scary moments and am I going to get better from this? And, it was a lot of uncertainty. I think showing that like God will give you those things, but in his timing. And I think I'm really learning to trust that timing and see it as like a beautiful, I need to wait on God to do this instead of, and I think because of all the unexpected things that happened last year, starting my business, I knew I was going to start it. I started it this year at the beginning of the year, and I was like, oh my gosh, what the heck am I doing? So it has given me that I have to trust God on this because I have no idea. I'm really out of my depths and I like need to focus on 18 different things and I have so many different passions and you actually like the structure of a business versus the actual like focus of a business and focus of my mind and just being able to plan for that long-term vision. And, I'm a one-woman show right now. The goal is not to be that, but I also know that like God is helping me in each step. And because I had to trust him last year, I was like, I actually know more that I cannot do this in my own strength because I actually don't know what I'm doing even more than last year.
So, like, in all of that, I was going to ask you, like, do you feel like now having come out of that, do you feel like that was the thing that you needed to recognize, or do you think there's still parts of it that you're like, I'm still unclear why that had to happen in that way?
I think I asked myself why a lot, and I got really good advice from a friend that asking why is great and God will give us a why at some stage, but sometimes you just have to ask what now.
Yeah.
And it did help me reframe a bit because I think I'm like, why? Like, and we sometimes just want to know the hindsight of like, that was the season where I grew in this way, and now I can tell a story about it, and it's beautiful and it's like reconciled, and there's so many awesome things. And I think I've not given up on the why, but I actually deeply know that there was a few pretty clear closed doors. So because of that, I'm like, I think this is just the blessing that I can maybe know this in the future, but I'm running with it now. Like, and
Right.
I think that clarity, you have to just rely on that clarity, even if it like feels muddy later, almost. I don't know if that makes sense, but
No, it totally makes sense. And I think there's this level of like, you don't always have to know the why in order to move forward. It's just
yeah,
sometimes what ends up happening along the way gives you that clarity on the why. And then there's just some elements of it that you just won't know. Like you're never going to know why certain aspects of that happen. I feel like it's so common to question it though, and to wonder,
yes,
especially when you're strong in your faith, it's like, okay, Lord, what am I to learn from this? How can I
yes,
use this
yeah,
to get me closer to the purpose that you have for me in my life? Like there was obviously something that I meant to learn from it. So like, can I just learn it so that I can move closer to what you're calling
yeah,
me to do? And so I feel like that would be so common, especially when you're somebody who's so driven and you have so many goals in mind. And it's like when you really can't do anything to get closer to it, it's like, okay, there has to be something deeper in all of this. And so, I mean,
yeah.
I hear it. I hear it in what you're saying. Like, it's just that season of like, I feel like God for me also is like, I have to stop you because if you don't, you're gonna keep going to a point where it's either not gonna line up with what I have in store for you, even though whatever he has planned will happen, but like it just won't be, I don't know. There's just so much that has to be learned along the way. I
What
said
was that stopping moment for you?
when I notice that I'm getting to the point where it's too stressful and I get to the point where it's almost, I guess I would say it's burnout. I feel like I have this really high tolerance for stress and busyness and workload because like for the past 15 years, I've always had aside from now, but I've always had two different hats that I had to wear. Like, you're in your 9 to 5 and you're building your business, or you're going to school full time and you're working. Like, I did that for so long that I have this high threshold, I think, of like being able to like, have like all of these plates spinning. And, but I become really aware of it when my body starts like, I get canker
Right.
sores, like, and like my body is like nauseous
Nope.
and not, yeah, like
Yeah.
it's physically manifesting. And then I notice I'm not patient and all of these things. And I went through a season where I felt like that all the time. And I didn't love what I was doing. And I was like, you know what? It's not about the accomplishments, right? Like you kind of were saying before, like she can do it
Yeah.
all, she can do this, she can do that. And I have all the time, even still, family that will be like, I'm worried about you. You're doing so many things. And I'm like, well,
Right.
also though,
That's just
like,
me. Like,
yes, also that's just me. And also, I must be doing my job because I have to appear like I'm doing a lot of things. Like with branding and marketing, like you should be everywhere. You should be doing all these things. So like it probably appears like I'm doing more than what I actually am because I don't
Yeah.
feel it. But I feel like the hard stop for me is those moments. And I had to like step back and say, you can't keep going in this direction. Like you're not serving your clients well because you are in a stage where you are like, trying to manage all of these different things. So you're not serving them with excellence and you are not serving your family because you're always busy and you're not getting sleep. So I feel like those are the moments. Like there was a season where I felt like that and it just was never ending where I felt like I was always sick
Right.
and all of these things. Other than that, it was just my having my youngest and God saying, like, no, you need to step out of corporate. Like, you are staying where it's comfortable, but you've been ready to be out
Right.
on your own.
What a powerful like, oh gosh. I don't actually want like it's always funny, like it's a dream in your head. And
Hmm.
then when it's real, you're like, I don't know if I'm ready for this.
Yes, well, because you're
Yeah.
leaving that thing that's comfortable, right? Like for me, because my husband is a business owner, and so for me, it was like I hold amazing health insurance. We have so many amazing benefits, and then to step
Right.
away, say you're gonna go 100% and just be reliant on that.
Trust, really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was gonna ask, what do you do right now to kind of take the pressure off yourself or not put so much pressure on yourself to be able to do it all?
My goodness, I don't think that I do. Which I wish I was so much better at that. I mean, I try to just be, I guess the thing that I do is I lean on like my community, like my support system, like my husband or like my friends that are of faith or my mom, the people that are closest to me that I'm like, I just it's that need for validation, I think is really what it is that I'm getting that
Right.
validation in my achievements and saying like it's okay, you're still worthy. Like you don't have to do all of the I don't have them say those things, but like I
Yeah.
talk through like, do I really need to do this? Or like, does this make sense? So like before I make a decision with business, I go to my husband and I'm like, should I take this on? Does this sound like I'm
Yeah.
on too much, or does this sound in line with what I do? What do you have? Because are you like that with your business?
Very much,
Okay.
very much so. I think I really love to chat to people who are, identifying as high achieving, wanting to do a lot, wanting to do everything, having all the plates in the air. And like, because everything came crashing down last year, I don't want that to crash down for everyone else. But at some point, things crash or like you just can't hold it all. And so I'm just more getting some market research because I'm like, how are people taking the pressure off themselves? And I've actually been creating a guide for that because I'm just trying to like, I see so much of the women that I see who want it all, can have it all, but it's at what cost? Like, it's at the cost of guilting yourself, shaming yourself, running yourself to the ground. And it's not just about reframing your achievements and your work, but it also is like, of course, like God has given you those dreams. So it's this like really trying to understand. I think social media has just really played a mind blown on us because I think we try to present ourselves as, I'm a seven-figure millionaire business owner and all these different things that will get the views, will get the engagement. But, at the end of the day, like those are the things that people are looking for us to like get to. And it's again back to that definition of your own success. Like if your own success is having a business that sustains you so that you can work with your family and, spend time with your family, like that's all that matters. And, having these other dreams and passions that pop up. Yeah. So I was more asking out of curiosity, but I feel like I've been told so many times, like, just stop putting so much pressure on yourself. And it's like, but I have high standards, so no. And then I'm
Right.
like, actually, so I think it's a bit of like I need to change that within me, but also I've been given this blessing of I want to be doing all these things. So it's really that balance before I get to that, I can't do anything anymore
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah. And I think it's a powerful question, actually. I love that you asked me that because I feel like going back to what I had said previously, like I loved what I do. So it doesn't feel like work. And so it's like, but you have to have something outside of that. Like something that you
Yeah.
detach from work and you detach and just don't think and decompress. And it's this level of like caring for yourself because even though it doesn't feel like work, it is. Your mind is constantly going and it needs a way to, be away from that. And I think that's one of the things that I really I don't know. I try to find things and they just don't give me that same like, I'm like, I just want to binge a show, but then I'm like, oh, there's nothing to watch. Or like, I want
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
take up coloring or something that's just so mindless. Well, not that,
Yeah.
but like really just offloading. I think that's a powerful question to ask. And I really do love that you asked that. I think that just innately, just being somebody who's like very goal driven, no, it isn't a bad thing for sure. I agree with you, like it's not a bad thing. And I think it's sometimes having that permission to say, like, just be aware. Like, just okay to
Yeah.
be those things, but just please make sure that you're being mindful because if you're not, it can sneak up on you.
Yeah, especially if you keep adding things in your life. And these things are great things like family, partner, spouse, like, there's all these things that we want in our lives, like more than just a job. But I think being aware that the more you add, the more like obligation there is to some of these things. And it doesn't feel like obligation in the time because we want to be hanging out and spending quality time with our family and our spouse. And we want to be like building this business that's going to like be helping other people. We want to be a good friend. Like, so it's not even being like, don't do those things. Because I think people hear that or like, don't put so much pressure. You don't need to do it all. And it's like, you don't need to be a good friend. It's like, no, I don't think that's it either. So I think it's really just being like, how can I be a good friend, but respecting my own needs?
Yeah, yeah. I think that yes, exactly what you said. It's okay to have all of those things, but like just be and kind of in moderation in a sense. Like just be
Yeah.
mindful before God does give you this hard stop and says, "Hey, no, this is not." There's something that needs to be learned because you're not getting it. And I feel like I'm that
Yeah.
way that I'm like, God, you have to be bold. You have to tell me. And he would 100% say, no, you need to stop in a very bold way for me. But I love that you're
Yeah.
gathering that because when you do come up with, whatever that looks like, whether that's an offer or, some sort of coaching, please send it my way because I feel like
Okay,
that's
perfect.
definitely so needed. And it's so needed in just the women that I speak to also, whether it's just finding that clarity with who they are or just, they have a level of success and it's like, how do I decompartmental, like separate this part of it so that I can, focus on myself and the things that I love outside of business. But I don't know. I feel like you and I are so similar in so many things. And so it was so easy for me to just be like, what would you do here? What would you do there? And I
Yeah.
loved
Yeah.
that.
Same.
Um, I'm curious. So like I know that so you have that coming up, but like you have something separate that's coming up as well. Do you want to share that part of it? I think it's like a
Yeah.
guide or like an offer.
Yeah, so my one-on-one coaching is open. So if you just are feeling a bit stuck or overwhelmed, I like to really think about if you're trying to make a few big decisions and you're like, I don't know how to pivot. Like, I think that's where I thrive is this the right decision for you? What are you trying to focus on right now and prioritize in your life? And a few different types of people that I've worked with is like, I am not spending enough time on the things I actually want to do, and I'm spending time on the things that I don't really think are helping me that much. And I think that's where I'm like, hey, it's okay. Like, let's really just look at your schedule. And a lot of times we just need, like, even our friends won't sit down with us and pick apart our schedules because it's just, you want your friends to be your friends, and your friends would probably definitely do that for you. But just having a bit of a different perspective of, all right, like, let's get you out of this. Let's really think about what your long-term vision is. If you don't have a vision, that's okay too. Let's figure that out. So I think I really thrive in helping someone make a plan for a bit of future proofing. And even if it doesn't go to plan, really helping someone just identify, oh, this is what I want actually. Because I think we can sleepwalk through so many things. And it's so much easier now because we have distractions and different shiny objects everywhere. So yeah, my coaching's open. And then I've created a career values course, or I think it's called Pivot Your Career. And I'm just building in the background right now, so you can join the wait list and it'll come out in a few weeks. So I'm really excited about that. And so that's more a bit career coaching focused, but it also is going to, I think it's about really thinking what you want for your long-term strategy in a career, because there's so many like, let's help with resume building and interview prep. And of course, those are so helpful, but I don't think a lot of times we think, what do we want in a career and what does a career actually look like? We're just like, what's the next job I can get and what's the next like salary bump I can get. So I really tried to think about some engaging activities and exercises that you can do to think about if you want to move out of your corporate 9 to 5, how could you actually make that happen, making a plan? Or if you're just thinking about your long-term strategy and vision and how to start asking the right people like for advice and for career help and networking and stuff like that. And my last thing is that I'm the how to not put so much pressure on yourself guide that is coming out like this week. So I can send that through. But yeah, I'm really excited. There's so many different things happening and refining my offer and stuff like that. But yeah, if you are interested in the career course or just a wait list, want to hear more, you can go to pagemckee.com/pivot, and that's where you can find some more information.
Yeah. So your socials though, those are different though.
My socials is Paigekins, so PaigeyKinzz. And you can find me on that in LinkedIn as well. And I'm very responsive on both. Connect with other people in your world
Yeah,
as
so we'll
well.
be putting like all your offers and when you launch in the newsletter as well. Well, our
Great.
newsletter for our
Thank
community.
you.
Yeah, I'm just so excited. First of all, like super excited for that. Everything you have launching, but just excited to just connect. Like, I'm so glad that our paths crossed because, first of all,
Same.
we're so similar in a lot of ways, but it's just so nice to have somebody just share a different perspective on things that are like actually very similar. And
Yes.
so
Yeah.
thank you for that. I've loved everything that you've had to say today and just hopping on with me. I know we always say a half an hour and it never ends up being that way, but I just love letting God just guide where our conversations go. So thank you so much, Paige.
Amazing. Thank you.